Bikers laughed at the teenage girl's jacket, then noticed the patch that shut them up. The rain had been falling since noon, and by the time 17-year-old Maya pushed open the heavy oak door of the Iron Wolf saloon, her boots were soaked through and her dark hair was plastered against her cheeks. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. She stepped inside, blinking against the cigarette smoke and dim yellow light. And the first thing she heard was the low rumble of conversation that slowly, steadily died down the moment people noticed her. The Iron Wolf was not the kind of place teenage girls wandered into alone on a Tuesday evening. It was a sanctuary for men who had lived hard lives, ridden harder roads, and carried the kind of stories on their skin that no one dared to question. The walls were decorated with license plates, faded photographs, and the mounted insignia of riding clubs that had earned their reputations over decades. Maya stood at the entrance, small and soaking wet, wearing a leather jacket that was 3 sizes too big for her, its sleeves swallowing her hands, its shoulders drooping past her own. The jacket was old, cracked in places, faded at the elbows, carrying the particular smell of road dust and engine oil that never quite washes out. A man at the bar with a grey beard braided to his chest was the first one to laugh. It was not a cruel laugh, not at first. It was the laugh of surprise, the kind that escapes before a man can catch it. But it caught on like fire catches dry wood, and soon several of the men seated at the surrounding tables were chuckling among themselves, nudging each other and nodding toward the girl in the oversized dead man's jacket. "Little girl, you lost?" The grey-bearded man called out, his voice carrying easily over the fading laughter. Halloween's not for another few months. More laughter followed, and Maya felt the heat rise to her face. But she did not back down. She had not come here to be welcomed. She had come here because this was the last place her father had been seen alive, and she needed answers. She walked to the bar slowly, her chin lifted, her jaw set in a way that reminded anyone who truly knew loss of what grief looks like when it decides to stand upright instead of collapse. She pulled herself onto a bar stool and placed both hands flat on the counter, and it was then, in the better light above the bar, that the grey-bearded man's eyes fell on the patch stitched onto the left chest of the jacket. His laughter stopped so abruptly it was as though someone had cut a wire inside him. The patch was circular, hand-stitched in red and black thread, and it bore a specific emblem, a Iron Wolf mid-howl, surrounded by the words, Road Ghost MC. Chapter 9, Founding Member. The grey-bearded man, whose name was Dutch and who had not shown visible emotion in 11 years, set down his glass with a hand that was no longer entirely steady. He stared at the patch, then at the girl, then back at the patch. "Where did you get that jacket?" he asked, and his voice was no longer amused. It was the voice of a man standing at the edge of something enormous. "It belonged to my father," Maya said, meeting his eyes without flinching. "His name was Ray Callahan." The saloon went so quiet that the sound of rain against the windows became the loudest thing in the room. Chairs scraped. Men who had been laughing 30 seconds ago were now rising to their feet, not in aggression but in something closer to reverence. Dutch came around the bar slowly, as though moving too fast might break something fragile in the air between them. He stopped in front of Maya and studied the jacket, the way a man studies a grave marker, reading it, honoring it, carrying the weight of what it means. "Ray Callahan," he repeated softly. "Ghost." He used the road name so naturally that Maya felt a sob rise in her throat, because that was what everyone who loved her father had called him, and she had not heard it spoken out loud by anyone but her mother in 2 years. "He was our founder," Dutch said, turning to face the room. Chapter 9 would not exist without Ghost, without this man. Half of us would still be riding, alone with nothing but our own. Bad decisions for company. He built something here. He believed that men who had been broken by life could build something worth protecting together. And he was right. He turned back to Maya. Your father was the most respected man any of us ever knew. And if you are his daughter, then you are family in this room. You are family in every room where a road ghost patch is worn. Maya had promised herself she would not cry. She had rehearsed being strong for this moment, during the entire 2-hour bus ride to get here. But strength, she was learning, is not the absence of tears. It is what keeps you sitting upright while they fall. She told them why she had come. She told them that her father had been riding to this very bar the night he died, that the official report said it was an accident on the highway, but that his bike had been found with damage that did not match the story, and that her mother had received an envelope 6 months after his death containing nothing but a key and a road ghost emblem with the word truth written on the back in her father's handwriting. Dutch listened to every word without interrupting. When she finished, he looked around the room at the men who had known Ray Callahan, who had ridden with him, who owed him debts that could not be measured in money. "We owe Ghost the truth," Dutch said simply. "And we owe his daughter everything he would have given any one of us." What followed that evening was the beginning of something Maya had never expected when she stepped into the rain. The beginning of answers, of justice quietly pursued through channels that courts and police, reports had never bothered to open, of a community that remembered what loyalty truly costs. Maya left the Iron Wolf that night, still wearing her father's jacket, but something about the weight of it had shifted. It no longer felt too big. It felt exactly the right size, as though her father had always known. She would grow into it, into the strength it represented, into the legacy it carried stitched across its chest. The patch had not just silenced a room full of strangers. It had opened a door that grief had sealed shut for 2 years, and on the other side of that door, finally, was the truth her father had left behind for her to find. Some inheritances come in the form of money or land or carefully worded wills. Ray Callahan had left his daughter something rarer, a name that commanded respect in rooms she had never entered, a community bound by honor, and the unspoken reminder that the people who truly loved us never entirely leave. They leave behind pieces of themselves in the most unexpected places, waiting patiently for us to find them. When we are finally ready to carry what they carried, to stand where they stood and to refuse, with everything we have, to back down. If this story moved your heart and reminded you that legacy lives on in the most unexpected moments, please show your love by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribing to our channel Kindness True Stories, where every story is a reminder that courage, compassion, and love are always worth telling.